A while back, I released a video titled Rewriting Tears of the Kingdom. Despite its name, though, this video was mostly focused on overhauling the general backstory of the game. It goes over a reimagined history of Hyrule's founding, the origin of the sages, Ganondorf, and the secret stones that I am renaming to Sacred Tears because their original name is dumb, as well as how the Triforce ties into all of it. If you haven't seen that video, I recommend you go and check it out for further context. I'll put a link in the description. Over the past few months, I've been working on a follow-up project that I'm currently calling Reimagining Tears of the Kingdom. As the name implies, this is a complete reimagining of the entire game. Not just its story, but also areas, gameplay mechanics, character arcs, and more. This is probably the most ambitious project I've ever done on this channel. More so than even my other M rewrite, I think. The script for it is actually more or less done, though the process of editing this thing is probably going to take me quite a while yet. Basically, don't expect it to be done until sometime next year at the earliest. That being said, there is one thing that I have been struggling to address in my reimagining. One detail that has been driving me absolutely insane. This freaking mural. This image from Breath of the Wild depicts the very first great calamity that took place 10,000 years before the fall of Hyrule, in which the Sheikah and their robots fought Calamity Ganon alongside an unnamed Maiden of Light and a mysterious swordsman. Initial thoughts were that these were probably past incarnations of Zelda and Link, except the Maiden appears to have much darker skin than any iteration of Zelda we've ever seen, and the swordsman appears to have flowing red hair. Now, there's no hard rule we know of saying that things like skin and hair color can't change with Link and Zelda's reincarnations, despite them never having done so before, but then Tears of the Kingdom comes along and makes things even more complicated. See, there are implications, even if slight, that the mysterious swordsman was actually a Zonai, something that makes no freaking sense considering that the entire race died or vanished well before Ganondorf was even sealed away in the main canon. We also never get any hints as to who the maiden might be beyond the nebulous idea that it's probably one of Zelda's ancestors. I initially planned to include a side quest chain in my reimagining that revolved around uncovering the identities of these two ancient heroes. But that wound up ballooning into its own thing that I decided I may as well just make into its own video. So here we are. Sorry for all the preamble, but I just really need you guys to understand how much frustration this damn mural has caused me and the context for why I'm making this its own video instead of just, incorporating it as part of the bigger reimagining project. So, without further ado, let's get to why you actually came here and jump right in. After the long and brutal struggle that was the Imprisoning War, a conflict which spanned multiple realms, peace at last returned to Hyrule. With the tyrannical Demon King sealed away, the era of prosperity began, but the cost to achieve it was not forgotten, nor was the potential threat of the Demon King's return. Nearly the entirety of the Zonai race was extinguished in the war, leaving their home realm all but abandoned. Those who survived the war knew that they must prepare for the day when Ganondorf broke free of his confinement. And even now, traces of his malice were leaking out into the world. The Sage of Spirit, Minoru, delved deep into the ancient texts and discovered a ray of hope. Secluded within a mystical forest, guarded by an ancient spirit, was the Master Sword, the blade of evil's bane, which had been wielded in ages long past to vanquish all manner of wicked forces. The Master Sword could only be wielded by one possessing a pure heart and unrivaled courage, and even reaching it meant navigating the perplexing labyrinth of the Lost Woods. Regardless, Minoru eventually managed to make her way into the heart of the forest, where she met the sword's guardian, the great Deku Tree. The Deku Tree informed her that the time was not yet right for the sword to be drawn, even though the avatars of malice were growing stronger. Despite her pleas, the Deku Tree remained adamant. Fate would guide the sword's intended wielder here when the world produced a hero capable of facing the Demon King. However, That day may not arrive for hundreds or even thousands of years. Minoru contemplated her options and came to a resolution. As the Sage of Spirit, she had the power to detach her soul from her own body and possess both creatures and objects alike. She believed that this destined hero may need more than fate to guide them. And so it was that Minoru convened with the other remaining sages to formulate a plan. The sages of fire, water, lightning, and wind would hide away their sacred tears within specially built temples, so that their descendants may one day find them and take up the mantle of a sage. Meanwhile, Minoru detached her own soul from her body, using her power as the Sage of Spirit to slumber within the Master Sword. When the day this chosen hero finally emerged, she would attempt to guide them to awaken the new sages and unite all of Hyrule against the Demon King. However, before that day came, the people would need to face the growing malice that embodied Ganondorf's wrath. Over the next several years, the royal family of Hyrule would make contending with this threat their greatest priority. Fortunately, they were not without options. As descendants of King Rauru, the power of the Sage of Light was passed down through their bloodline. Even if the sacred tear that would allow them to make full use of this power was lost in the imprisoning war, that radiance nonetheless proved effective in combating the darkness. The Sheikah clan, loyal servants to the royal family, would make use of their technological innovations to construct the Guardians and the Divine Beasts. An army of machines stood at the ready to face Ganondorf's fury when it arrived. Despite this, the Sheikah cautioned that their creations could only stall the entity that they now called Ganon. It would take none other than the Blade of Evil's Bane to seal the darkness away. And so, 500 years after the Demon King was sealed away, it happened. The Calamity erupted from deep below Hyrule Castle, and the Sheikah clan's creations were put to use. It fell to the current Princess of Light, Zelda, and her cousin Tharos to brave the Lost Woods and seek out the weapon that could defeat the Calamity. Tharos was one of the last surviving members of the Zonai race, a descendant of King Rauru and Queen Sonia. Though not a full-blooded Zonai, Tharos nonetheless took immense pride in his ancestry, aspiring to match the bravery that Rauru and Sonia displayed when facing Ganondorf long ago. From an early age, he trained relentlessly to master the blade, facing monsters all across the kingdom. With Zelda's aid, Tharos was able to navigate the Lost Woods, and the two eventually arrived before the Great Deku Tree. The spirit informed them that Tharos was not the one destined to fell the source of the calamity, but the strength of his resolve was unquestionable. If Tharos was truly prepared to give his life for the kingdom as his ancestors had before him, he may indeed be able to wield the Master Sword for a time. Drawing the blade took a serious toll on Tharos, draining his very life force, but the Zonai warrior persisted in spite of the pain. Minoru's spirit remained slumbering within the blade, as the time had not yet come for her to play her part. The roar of the calamity shook the very heavens, and so Zelda and Tharos hastened to rejoin the fray. Ganon was assailed on all sides by the divine beasts, which had all but exhausted their energy reserves to leave it in a weakened state. Zelda and Tharos stepped forward to confront the wicked being, and after a long battle, Tharos was able to deal a final blow that sealed Ganon away once more. However, the last of his vitality was spent in the process. The battle was won, but not without cost. The Master Sword was returned to its resting place in the forest. The name Zelda would be passed down to daughters of the royal family for ages to come, in reverence to the Princess of Light that fought tirelessly to seal the calamity away. Tharos would be remembered as the ancient hero who gave his life to deliver the final blow, even if his name would be all but lost to time. Thanks to them, Hyrule would know 10,000 years of peace, until the day of its tragic fall. So there you have it. This was my attempt to explain the ancient mural of the first great calamity. Players would be able to uncover the details about Tharos and Rauru through side quests in the main game. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I hope you all enjoyed this little mini-story and are looking forward to reimagining Tears of the Kingdom. Until then, stay bright.